What up, my peoples? Let's do a little bullis. If you don't know what bula is, I'm just going to tell it to you the way it was taught to me. It's a Fijian word for to life, but I've also heard that it's like aloha, so we're kind of going hi. But I'm going to go with what I know, which is a bit of a celebration word. Get your shells up, water, coffee, tea, melatonin mix, whatever you got. Bulation Nation, it's a celebration. Pick that up from the kava community. If you got a kava bar near you, go visit them. They've got great people there. But this story is like the origin of insecurity in like a very specific manner. And it started in my household because I was getting fathered by a stepdad, but who wasn't very like emotionally integrated. So he had a lot of like rage and anger that he still hadn't processed. And I think he saw a lot of himself in me when I was a kid. So his mind kind of defaulted to how his dad treated him, which was a bit over the top. Which created that sense that I've talked about of me not wanting to be like him, but then also another spicy variable is when these things would be happening to me, my mom would be around. And I would she'd be like passing by in the hallway or walking around through the room that he's beating me in, and I would look at her, try to see that her eyes would meet mine, and she would do something, and she would not be facing me. She would literally just give me her cheek, and that made me feel like, damn, bro. When people are needed or need someone, I'm a freaking step up, and that was implanted into me very, very young. So when you're 6 through 9, like what can you do or what can you say, especially when things are going on with adults? Like you can understand there's tension, but what can you say or what can you do? You're just a kid. So through that time, I want to say around 10 to 11, I ended up getting into Taekwondo, and that helped give me some confidence because now I'm like, all right, I'm the Avatar, bro. I love the staff, so I was like, I'm the Avatar, bro. Like who's gonna mess with me? Like I can fight now, right? I can protect myself. So through that time, from the end of elementary school going into middle school, I'm refining my martial arts, the way of hand and foot, Taekwondo. And there was a bully that I ended up fighting who I realized later on more people stepped up and told me, well, they didn't tell me, they were just thanking me for fighting him. And I didn't understand why. And as the conversations went on with them, they would tell me how he pushed them to the point of them wanting to unalive themselves. And I thought that was crazy because I felt the same way. Not just him, but also factors at home and other people at school. But plus him, I got to that point where I wanted to do the same, where I had a note in my backpack. And then there was a day after the fight, my note was still in my bag. So I'm just going to rewind a little bit to sometime right after him and I fought. He ended up changing schools, and we were suspended for 3 weeks during winter vacation, so we ended up getting suspended for a month, him and I essentially. So when we come back, all people remember was these two fought. I know this kid, he does martial arts, he probably kicked his butt, and now that kid's not here. So they crowned me the winner off of that. I did some damage, I'm just gonna say that. And within that, I learned, okay, I'm physically capable, and I can show up for myself. Something that I've always been yearning to do because of what I've seen and experienced when I was younger. And there was a moment where a kid who was like a minor bully that I kept around as a friend, because he was my friend, people would leave me alone. Or it was one of those situations where I'd rather hang around this one guy that's kind of annoying than try to roam around school and look for friends and get like picked on hard by a bunch of random people. And essentially that social interaction wasn't serving me anymore because now I'm like, I got my own feet to stand on. I got my own reputation now because people know that I tengo las manos. So he was making fun of a fellow bandmate in our reading class. And he was just saying, oh man, what happened? What's up, bro? Why's your voice like that? You up all night sucking dick or blah, blah, blah. And the girl sitting next to me told him to shut up. And he wouldn't listen to her. And then the teachers butted in. He still wouldn't listen to her. So then I got to the point where I turned to him and I said, if you don't shut up, I'm going to fight you. And obviously, this coming from someone who has already been in a fight, there's a little more weight to that. So he ended up stopping right then and there. And while we were getting ready to go to lunch during slash after that period, the girl sitting next to me says, hey, that was really cool. And I shit you not, to this day, I still replay that memory from how motivating it was and how motivating it is to me personally. Because I had grown up seeing people that I thought was cool, and that's all I ever wanted to be, was be cool. So the fact that I stood up for somebody, something that I've always wanted to do, A, standing up for myself, and also being able to do it for somebody else. And in that moment of me standing up for someone else, this girl turns to me and says, that was really cool. It lit up my whole life. It inflated my head to the point where I had a normal ego because of how in the negative I was. And after that class ended and after we came back from lunch and then our class ended, I took the unaliving note in my bag and I threw it away. Because that moment on, from what she told me, I would just tell myself, cool people don't take their own lives. And that motivated me a lot, because all I ever wanted to do early on in life was being able to show up for myself and defend myself, and to furthermore do it for others. So now as a young jitty youngster in middle school, I show up for someone, even if it was just verbally, and I got rewarded in a manner, and that also shifted my perspective, right? Because then I actually understood, damn, being loving and supportive to people is actually really punk rock. Like, that is the most rebel thing you could do, is show up for people and be kind. Because ultimately, whenever I only saw these benevolent characters, it was just out of like superheroes or different kind of archetypes that you would expect it out of. But then I really understood that when you're doing that in the real, you're actually being of service to people and using your strength for good and your experience for good. It's awesome. And other people notice that. So I took that knotted feeling of not really having anyone show up for me when I was young, and that proliferated into becoming someone that now hardcore shows up for themselves and others. And the best part is, that same feeling I still have today, and it's helped me make the body that I have now. Because I've always wanted to become more physically capable, especially after that moment where my friend said, hey, that was really cool. Because then it's like, how can I be cooler? How can I do more? How can I show up more? And ultimately, that leads me to bring up another point where if you're building a mind and a fortified emotional being and a strong physique, if a part of all of that isn't to be of service to other people or to give back, you're not going to get very far. Because it's a selfish gain. You need to do all these things in bettering your life so that you can show up for yourself, your younger self, your inner child, which is already someone else, but really showing up for them so that you could live your life to the fullest and then show up for others. Because when you show off how cool you are by how much you've worked on yourself to someone else is going to see that. They're going to see you getting complimented, and they're going to think to themselves, damn, bro, I wish I was like that. I wish I was that person that was confident enough to step in. And crazy enough is I was scared to step in, even after I got into a fight and say those words. And the crazy thing about fear, or not even about fear, yes, it's the doubt, it's the insecurity, it's the what if I can't. But the cool thing is courage is not the lack of fear, but it's action in the face of it. So someone who is courageous is not someone who has never felt the daunting fangs of fear on their mind and in their hands and in their feet, and they've never felt freezing up before. No. Courage is someone who feels those things and then uses that energy to charge forward and get something done. And if you're someone who has been starving of the ability to grab your fear and just crush it up into like some invigorating power and huff it up and charge through all of your problems, that's what the community is for. That's what I'm for. That's why I always put my Instagram in my description, because I want to connect with people who have felt how I did when I was younger. And now, man, there's times even now when I'm an adult where I feel those things. And some of those things I want to say that are happening in the real for me right now is talking to my parents about certain things. My current pursuits. They have believed in everything that I've done if it met their expectations. After like, yeah, or like his or their limitations of me. Oh, he's capable of that. Yeah, we think he's capable of that. So if he brings that up, yeah, we see him doing that, and because we see him doing that, we want to support him doing that because whatever. That's where our limitations for him are. So when I bring up my current pursuits and what I'm trying to do with my life to them, they don't understand. But I understand that when I speak to certain individuals and personalities that want to live life to the fullest and they have that yearning in them to show up for themselves and others, I can help pull that out of them, right? There's like this, I'm only going to really use the word genius here so that I could make an analogy, but it's the genius in me that sees the love in others that want to experience life the same way I do. And the reason I say genius is because someone that's talented hits a target that most can't, but a genius hits a target people didn't even know existed. And we all have that genius. But the best way to do that is to start showing up for yourself. Start showing up and serving your inner self and looking at the lessons that are in your life and growing through them. Or reflecting on the, man, why do I want to be so jacked in the gym? And then you remember, oh, it's because I was physically trespassed when I was younger, or I couldn't show up for myself or my friends when we got picked on the playground or something. And dude, use that. Charge through life with that. And if you don't know how, hit your boy up, bro. Because I believe in you the same way you should be believing in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, believe in me because I believe in you. And the best part is we're all one crazy, beautiful creation from the big guy upstairs. So when you believe in me that believes in you, you're believing in yourself. But I'm just going to show you how to do it autonomously. Be the first person that supports yourself and the most reliable one when you're the last. Because you can do anything you set your mind to. I was able to start showing up in ways that I didn't think it was possible because of that crazy situation I was in when I was younger. The abuse that I was in when I was younger. The neglect that I was in when I was younger. That sent like these like, dude, you're never going to be able to help someone. You couldn't even help yourself. And then I grabbed that boundary, that doubt, and I shredded it as I was going through martial arts, my fight in middle school, and then showing up for a friend afterwards. And ever since then, all those moments that I knew if I was younger and I didn't let myself show up at that one time, I'm doing it a bunch now. When there's something going on physically, I will physically displace someone from what's going on. I'm like, dude, you are a troublemaker. You are going to hurt someone. Scoop, go away. I have baby carried people out of kava bars and away from people multiple times because I physically can. And the part that feels good isn't the fact that I just manhandled someone. It's just the fact that I was able to help someone. And maybe with that person that I pick up, they realize, damn, bro, like I'm being ridiculous. This guy with glasses just picked me up like if I was a tantruming toddler. And maybe that would cause a reflection point for them. I know it's kind of a hard perspective kind of conversation to think about, but when you're strong and you're capable, you can affect everybody's life for the better, especially if that's what you're meaning to do. And if you want to be the hero that starts to show up for you, hit me up, dude. Let's do this life thing together. Let's freaking level up together and be the best versions of ourselves because that's what we're called to do. Skittle up.